what's good, everyone? This your brother King 2 coming back at you again with another broadcast on the YouTube channel Black Empowerment Movement. And today I have a special guest to come through today to talk about Juneteenth. I have my good brother here, Isaiah. Isaiah, how you doing today?
Good evening, brother. I'm doing all right. I'm still learning, still growing. All is well.
All right, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. So yeah, guys, as you know, today is June 20th. This is the I guess the official day that they say, hey, this is the holiday for Juneteenth. I mean, official day is June 19th, but I guess as we observe it on the June 20th, some people was able to take off the day. Like myself, I wasn't, but that's another discussion for another day. But I know a lot of you guys, you was able to take off for today for Juneteenth, so that's all cool. Even the good white people was able to take off today as well. They was able to reap some of the benefits of resting today. So yeah, so we're gonna get into this thing today. We're gonna talk about Juneteenth. We might get into the history of it a little bit. Before we jump into all of that, guys, I want you to make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel Black Empowerment Movement. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, whether you're watching it live right now or you watching it down the road later on. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching the videos, you like what you see, make sure you subscribe, like, share a video. We have plenty of videos on here that may tickle your fancy, so be sure to share those videos and definitely make sure you subscribe. But without further ado, with our guest Isaiah, go ahead and introduce yourself, brother. Tell the people a little bit about yourself and and why I even brought you on. I think you're a very knowledgeable young man, so tell the folks about you a little bit.
Yeah, just a man. So again, my name is Isaiah Thompson. My handle for starters for everything is Isaiah, ISAIAHWT4 on all platforms. And I'm 23 years old. I grew up on the east side of Fort Worth, still currently live in Fort Worth. And generally speaking, I just do my best to be educated on what happens here in the local community as far as grassroots organizations and other organizations. And I just consider myself a servant of the people. So I don't have a whole lot of experience in my belt, but that's why I say I'm here to learn and teach. There's always something to learn. There's always somebody out there who can teach. And as long as we are all teachable and receptive, then I think we can move forward and have progress.
That's good stuff. So you say you originally from Fort Worth. Were you like recently involved in any Juneteenth activities or anything, or festivals, or if you were, like, how was the experience?
Yes, I'm originally from Fort Worth, and as far as I know, both of my parents are from Fort Worth, and so are their parents. They have some other history behind that too. But I myself did not attend Opal Lee's Walk this past year, for example, but I did attend the Sycamore Juneteenth Festival, Juneteenth in the Park. And for a little bit of background on that, it even says Opal Lee has said it herself, known as the grandmother of Juneteenth, that Sycamore Park, historically, that is where a lot of the Juneteenth festivals were held in Fort Worth. And everybody has their own Juneteenth celebrations, but that was a big one that was in Sycamore Park. I think she said 30,000 people showed up one time when she was younger, some years ago. But generally speaking, also on that note, when it comes to the history of Juneteenth, excuse the sun, Juneteenth festivals, many people celebrate them, use it as a way to educate people and just have fun. One thing that has been showcased a lot is art. So that was a Juneteenth Arts Festival. There were people doing their thing. There's 2 or 3 people who were showing their art as well. So that's one thing that has been kind of part of the history of Juneteenth in Fort Worth, is having like art showcased. That's probably another reason I don't think the Kimball Art Museum fully knew that they also displayed African art, but that's another story. So
what is Juneteenth? What is Juneteenth? You originally being from Texas and from Fort Worth. Me being from Mississippi, me personally, I didn't see a lot of too much of people celebrate Juneteenth. But what is Juneteenth historically?
Juneteenth, the Cliff Notes version, if you will, I think the version that everybody should know is Juneteenth is historically, first of all, a Texas holiday. It is known as the day, June 19th, 1865, that General Granger rode into Galveston Beach, or Galveston Bay, as people call it, and issued special General Order Number 3, stating, and actually have it pulled up here, so I'm just going to read it. We can talk about it a little bit. It says, the people are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights, rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them become that between employer and hired labor. We'll talk more about that later. The freed are advised to remain at their present homes and work for wages. We'll talk more about that later.
Can you paraphrase what that means? Like people watching, like what that means, like what you're reading.
So this is literally word for word what General Granger came in on Galveston Bay, and he delivered this message. It's also important to, this is basically telling them that, hey, that you all are free. The Emancipation Proclamation has been written and you all are free. He's literally telling them that they are free. And he's giving them further instructions as to, like, hey, here's what you basically can and can't do. At least that's how I see it. He says, okay, you're advised to stay in your homes, and basically your relation between your slave master and your former self is to work for wages. In the last part, it says they are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts, and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere. Lastly, on that final note, you probably are aware of this. We know that Abraham Lincoln freeing the slaves is kind of a false statement. You know, they were emancipated. There was nothing that was really given to, as the term I use, descendants of African captives. That's why this last part says, and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere. So that's what it means. And we'll talk more about this in a second, but it's also important to note that some people think it's a myth out there, though. He rode into Galveston Bay and he stood on this podium, he delivered this message, and, you know, people started doing the Plantation Jubilee dance. No, that's not true. This message, we're all intelligent people, was circulating already amongst people. And the Chicago Defender was that's later on. This message was circulating just like many other messages were circulating. So there was word to mouth of this message between African captives. But when he finally delivered it, that's when a lot of people took notice. Thus, Juneteenth was essentially born, and celebrations ensued for the years to come. That's the clip from this version.
Now, in your person, like, we know that it's officially a holiday and everything. Now personally, with how you seen how things is taking place, and like your own personal beliefs, like how do you currently feel about Juneteenth now? Like, are you happy? Like, I'm glad you on her, because you coming from you're a younger person, and I always like to get the younger people like personal views on things, because a lot of times we can, like people my age, we can always be in our own echo chambers, and we don't really understand what the youth is thinking. Like, your own personal views, your own personal opinions, like how you feel currently about Juneteenth.
Well, us younger people, even myself included, I'll self-admit that sometimes I'm in my own echo chamber. You know me, I probably like to hear myself talk a lot, but my personal opinions, my personal views on the holiday itself, I'm not upset at it, and I consider it just as many other holidays. Instead of moreover a day of celebration, for me, a day of remembrance. You know, something that you observe, almost like Memorial Day, simply because of the reason behind it. And I say that not to say that other people can't celebrate. Again, this is my personal opinion, because given the current status of African descendants of African captives in this country and other places on planet Earth, I still think that the slogan Juneteenth means freedom hasn't been fully fulfilled. So, but that's just part of it. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not mad at the holiday. I think the holiday should exist. I don't think that making it a national holiday is something that is a quote unquote landmark, because again, we have been celebrating it. I want to close on that when we end up closing, but I mean, it is a holiday. I think it should be a holiday. I'm glad that it's observed. But for me personally, my sentiments are more of a day of observance and learning, opposed to celebrating, as many people do. And perhaps observing and learning can be a part of celebrating. You know, me myself personally, I like to read and do different things to be educated. but that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you on that part. I always like the ideal of not the idea, but I like the when I moved to Texas, I like the idea of how the native people always took time to look back and reminisce and remember what the day means. Before it became this big national holiday, when I moved here, I love how the people locally always took part. Like before it was even a holiday, people in Fort Worth and other surrounding cities in the Metroplex and the DFW Metroplex, they always took time to remember what happened back then, and celebrated Juneteenth, as a, to look back and see what happened. Like, hey, took advantage of. They got some more free slave labor out of that particular group of people in Texas. So I think it's important to look back and remember things like that. What you was about to say?
And at that point, I didn't mean to cut you off when you say they got a little bit more labor out of those folks in Texas. Is our previous discussion, and it is now, I think, being told more, being that this is historically a Texas holiday. We have to remember that almost every state has their own version of Juneteenth, like I told you, because this was just marking the anniversary of the word that people in Texas were told. The last two states, Kentucky and Delaware, which were border states, along with 3 other states, but these are the last 2 states that actually honored the Juneteenth, and they weren't quote unquote free. They didn't get the word until later, I believe December 8th. I don't have my notes all the way in front of me, but December of June 1965, it was Kentucky and Delaware. They were the last 2 states to actually quote unquote acknowledge it. Furthermore, way on down the line, you have many states in their constitutions, but remember the federal constitution overrides it. They didn't abolish the 13th Amendment. Some into the 19th, into the 19th century. That just goes to show the history, whatever those states were. I have them for me. I'll read it off later. But that's another thing to remember. Juneteenth, historically Texas holiday, but remember there were other states that have their own version of Juneteenth, and Kentucky and Delaware were the last 2 states to honor it. There were 11 border states that kind of, again, didn't want to follow the rules of the Union. You have states that formed the Confederacy. Kentucky and Delaware were the last ones to quote unquote fall in line. Wow. Also, if I may, I just may add on that.
Go ahead.
We'll touch some more on some of these things later. As you know, this marks the end of slavery on paper. There were many people, even I have people in my family, myself, ancestors, one who recently deceased, rest in peace, that were sharecroppers on into the 19th century. And even before that, you had people that were basically still receiving either slave wages, or they knew that they were free, but the people, the places that they were working on, the plantation or the land they were working on, they didn't know where else to go. They had no other way of life. So when I read that statement, it says that they will not be supported in idleness either or elsewhere, and that they were advised to stay in their homes, and that their relationship would be between the employer and hired labor. That's literally what this general order read. And a lot of these descendants of African captives, this was their only way of life they knew, to pick cotton, to plant the crops. So they stayed on their former slave masters' plantation. Some of them were treated well, some of them weren't treated so well.
Yeah,
so that's also a part of it. And that
so right now, like with the celebration of Juneteenth, we have it. It's a national holiday. So how do you feel about other groups of people celebrating it? And do you feel like it will get diluted with having everybody? Like I see a lot of, like, in the corporate world, you'll see people celebrate and say, hey, they'll put the corporate spin on it, where they'll say stuff like Juneteenth represent freedom for everyone or something like that. I know you may not be in corporate America, but this is what I have seen in corporate America. You have other groups of people say, yeah, Juneteenth, or you may see even some black folks say, hey, Juneteenth not just for black folks, it represents freedom for everybody, all people of color, some stuff like that. Even if you haven't seen that, like, what's your views on stuff like that?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I had some notes prepared for that. And I like to say I do consider myself an optimist. So I personally, not that there's anywhere that I can tell other people how to celebrate or honor. I don't have a problem with other people honoring. I'll say I don't know about celebrating, but honoring the Juneteenth holiday or any holiday for that matter. My personal opinion is again, it's about what do you know about the holiday? You know, are you educated? There's people who will always have different viewpoints and aren't aligned politically. And I'm not talking about going and casting a ballot, but I'm talking about politically speaking up here. There's many people in America and everywhere that aren't politically aligned with one another. When it comes to the holiday Juneteenth, if you know the true history of Juneteenth, then that's fine. I mean, I don't know every single person I come in contact with, but if you're going to honor it, then I have no problem with that. Furthermore, this is something that I consider myself an optimist about because our inception in this country is different, just as other groups. Um, Arguably, also the excuse me, that's not arguably the Native American or the American Indians, as they like to be called now, also have a different story and inception in this country. So that being said, the statement I think about is when they say freedom for everybody or it's not a black holiday. Well, when you think about it, given our contributions to this country and the things that we've done for everybody else and how the work that we put in is for everybody else, I can see how somebody can say that, oh, this holiday is for everybody. It's celebrating freedom for everybody because you can't deny that the work that we have put in, among others, was and is still currently for everybody. I think that's what makes the holiday kind of unique because I'm not certain, but how many other holidays that other groups of people celebrate here in the United States can you say celebrate freedom for everybody? You know, what work have other people done? Not to say they haven't, because we know there's many different groups in America that exist. Ours is unique because there is a whole lot of work that was done, and we represented a unique time period in American history. So again, just to end on that note, I'm optimistic about it. I mean, I'm not. I would be lying to you if I told you it doesn't kind of bother me because still our current state, there's more work to be done. When people
That's
say
yeah, that's what I'm
freedom for
asking. Does it
everybody,
bother you? Do like I mean, you don't have to, be political correct on this, on the broadcast.
no, I'm just
Just say how you
it
feel.
does bother me. It's just the optimist side of me says, okay, if you really are down about it, um, if you are perhaps politically the same as I am, and then you can honor that, then okay, I have no problem. But yeah, I mean, I'm not lying to you. It does bother me a little bit because again, it's all about currently where we're at. You know, when people say we're free or it's about freedom for everybody. Let's just look at the date real quick. 1865. You have 1964. You have 1865. You have 1776. And right now it's the year 2022. Last I checked my math, actually I wrote it down. Since 1964, which marks the Civil Rights Act, that was 58 years ago. My dad is 53, born in 1969. For some people, the Civil Rights, when the Civil Rights Act was passed, mind you, that's the second Civil Rights Act, not the first. The first was in 1866. Not a lot of people are aware of that either. That marks quote unquote freedom for a lot of different people, 1964, because of Jim Crow laws, which is another point we can talk about post Reconstruction Civil War, right? Going back to the date, 1864, 99 years from 1776, excuse me. There goes another gap right there. Even in 1864, we know we went through again Reconstruction, which was not a long time at all, and Jim Crow era segregation, right? That's an 89-year gap. Now, from 1619, and there's even some evidence to suggest before 1619, but we'll use 1619 to 1776, that's a 157-year gap period. And even then, you have 1864, which is way past that. So you have these gaps in history. So when we say we are free, again, this is my quarrel. This is me. The reason it kind of upsets me when people say it's freedom for everybody. Even Opa Lee herself said it's about freedom for everybody. I mean, come on, 1865. What was happening in 1865? You know, that goes into the next point that we could talk about is what happened to descendants of African captives in the years following the Civil War after Juneteenth. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Andrew Jackson came into office. You've heard of the Freedmen's Bureau. Andrew Jackson essentially undid a lot of the work that Lincoln did as far as giving quote unquote reparations, which it wasn't reparations, to descendants of African captives. That's what the Freedmen Bureau was, giving back land to literal slave owners. Anybody can go look this up. You can check the Library of Congress. I even have some books here I could reference. And even then, as we both know, this was another point about freedom. The 16th president, Abraham Lincoln, was actually trying to send slaves to Haiti. To send African people back to Haiti.
Now, before we get too much into the history, I want to address something David just comment on. She said she don't mind people celebrating the holiday, and Deasia, I'm like you. I don't mind people celebrating the holiday as well, but I think we still need to have some parameters on how far they try to take things too. I don't like when it's a person, another race, or a black person say that it's freedom for everyone. No, the fuck it's not. It's not freedom for everyone. Juneteenth don't represent freedom for everyone. Juneteenth is a very specific time frame in history that happened that was for black people, or foundational Black American, or ADOS, African descendants of slavery, wherever you want to term us. It's for us because it happened to us. It didn't happen to no other group of people in this landmass of what we call the United States of America. Of course, everybody should be able to celebrate it, but we shouldn't be using words loosely like, oh, it's freedom. It represents freedom for everyone. Exactly. No, fuck it then. It didn't represent freedom for everyone. It represents freedom, quotation, freedom for black people, that was very on paper for a specific date, time, and all of that. So that's my pet peeve with that. And I'm not upset that it was made a national holiday. Hey, what's up, Pam? Pamela Young. Yes. This day is for us. And
I was a little bit upset when it became a national holiday, but then again, I let up. That was just me being, all rah. I was a little bit upset, but
initially I was too. I think the reason I initially I wasn't mad at the fact it was made a holiday. I was mad that I know what's coming with that. By making it a national holiday, you would have not everyone, but a vast majority of us would get complacent and feel like this is a victory. This is something to raise up and cherish. This is not nothing. I don't want to. To me, it's not nothing to really celebrate. It's good. It's fine. But it's not something like to champion and say, yeah, we got this. Oh, we got this Juneteenth holiday, when we already have people in Texas and the other states celebrating this day on their own. We didn't need the federal government to tell us to celebrate this day. We had black people already across the country celebrating this day. So if we're going to celebrate the federal government, the president giving us something, it needs to be something we can put our hands on. That's what I want to champion. Some. If we're gonna use the power of the executive office, the president, to put something in law for us, it needs to be tangible. Yeah, holiday cool, but we was already celebrating Juneteenth. We didn't need the federal government to tell us what to celebrate. But what we do need the federal government to do is give us something more important. And I'm sure you can go off a list of things that they need to give us. For one, reparations. We need reparations. We need laws on the book that protect black people against these terrorists, these white supremacists out here, the white supremacy people that's working in these police departments and these other different agencies out here. We need laws on the books. Not only laws on the books, we need laws on the books that get enforced, because these laws are no good if we're not enforcing these laws. So we got a slew of things we should use the executive branch for besides giving us a holiday. Uh, and before I, yeah, and what you think on that? I know I just went on a tangent right there, but what you think, Isaiah?
Yeah, feel free to interject anytime. I'm in agreement with you. It being a holiday, loosely, like you said, it's not nothing to really celebrate. It goes back to my opinion of it being a time of remembrance, and observance and learning. Because literally, people saying it means freedom for everybody. Okay, we're going to take the date 1865, and we're literally saying 1865 means freedom for everybody. Anybody with common sense knows that that's not a true statement. It just means that on paper. It's plain and simple. I mean, everybody's favorite civil rights leader Martin Luther King said that, "Hey, I just want America to live up to the nation it says it's going to be on paper." Right. So
Mm-hmm.
that being said, I can't get mad at it. I'm in agreement with you. I think it does open the door. And honestly, this is what the optimist in me is. I do think it should and will lead towards a conversation about reparations. But if I must be real, and this is just me again, just like many of the other things, let's just say, for example, I'm just going to throw this out there. Let's say like cancer, for example. I do think that reparations is one of those things that they're not ever really truly going to let happen. And I say let happen, I'm using that on
Yeah.
purpose. Um, but I do think that there is a way, if people organize, people who are educated, who know what they need to do, organize, there's almost so that we can give ourselves reparations, so to speak. And I'm just saying that very loosely because I don't really think that reparations will happen on a legislative level. That doesn't mean we give up the pressure. That doesn't mean we still don't do what we're doing. That means there's some changes that have to happen. And again, that's just my opinion. I would love to be proved wrong, but that's just my honest opinion. Juneteenth is the 12th federal holiday. I think I wrote this down. The one before that was Martin Luther King Day. So if you look at the parallel here, you have Martin Luther King, right? This is a short history lesson. Martin Luther King, his holiday was made a federal holiday by pressure of his fraternity, Alpha, whatever his fraternity is, right? They were the
Mm-hmm.
ones who initially put pressure to make that a federal holiday. The person who made that a federal holiday was Ronald Reagan, who was for, we know Ronald Reagan, I'll say this on record, a racist. I just posted on my story, a racist, but I don't care if people say he was a racist. Initially did not want to make that a federal holiday, but he was forced by the Alpha fraternity to make that a federal holiday, right? They met with him, they made it a federal holiday. Now, Juneteenth, Joe Biden, slightly different conversation. This was easy. I can't think of the word, but it was almost like what they call like a consent agenda item. The vote passed 415 to 14 to make Juneteenth a federal holiday, right? They did that just like that. This happened last year, June 17th. And I don't know the 14 people who voted against it, but that goes to show you right there where their hearts are at. And that was by the House of Representatives. So, lastly, I'll say this: we can go again to the Civil Rights Act and use that as an example. That's not a federal holiday, but there are people who do think that voting day should be a federal holiday because everybody should have the right to vote, right? John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson both were coerced into signing legislation by who? Descendants of African captives, Black people, African Americans, among other groups, right? These are the
Mm-hmm.
things that people have to remember. So again, we're going to bring these points together. It's not about necessarily freedom for everybody. It's about it happening on paper, right? So there goes that other world of conversation of how people say we need to change of hearts, we need to change the people to change their morals and all those things. That's very true. But if they're going to give us anything, like you said, Kentu, it should be something tangible. It should be something like reparations. It should be something we can actually see and almost grasp, something we can use. And that's nothing new. We know there have been many other groups in this country that have received reparations and still to this day. And I have some more history on that too. But that's my personal opinion on it. Oh, and on that note, since we're talking about Juneteenth, this is important to remember. And post Reconstruction and Civil War, Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, right? One of the grandfathers of African American. He's one of the greats. Was known as a black president elector. He was yet another person who consistently met with Abraham Lincoln, telling him what he needed to do to win the Civil War and to get blacks on his side. He's another one of those people, just like Martin Luther King, MLK, all the other organizers, Lyndon B. Johnson. Okay, those are the parallels we have throughout history. So you see this trend throughout history with these big events. You have descendants of African captives, African people, among others. And I say among others because one thing, and I'll say this and I'll end, that it's very distasteful to hear is when we start talking about our story and you will have people who will come and say, well, what about XYZ? You know what? You're right. This is America. This is about freedom for everybody. I would love for you to educate me on those said things. I should be educated on those said things while I educate you on my history. So if that is you, please come educate me. We can learn something. That's why I say us and among other groups, because I know they have done work. No disrespect. That's just not my ancestors. That's not the group that I identify with. So we see this trend throughout history with these moments in time. You have Frederick Douglass, the likes of Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, and the rest of the workers in the Black Freedom Movement. And then you can argue Opal Lee and other organizers who, I don't want to say begged, who forced people to sign legislation, forced Joe Biden, RAB to sign legislation that was a consent agenda item, forced John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, forced Ronald Reagan to make that a national holiday. And then even still, what do we get from MLK Day? That's another example. I mean, people still don't really know what the true MLK was because they don't do their history on it. People don't read.
Correct. And that's, and not to be a conspiracy theorist, but I don't think it's too forceful of a stretch. But when Martin Luther King, MLK, he got to talking about reparations, that's when the government wasn't really fucking with him then. He started talking about reparations, workers' rights, all that type of stuff. That's when the government wasn't rocking with him too hard then. And he was like he said it himself, he's coming for a check. And and we know what happened after that. So we're not gonna get into all that. But at the end of the day, the holiday is cool, I think it's like Pamela said, she said, yes, I'm glad, we have a holiday open up doors for more. Exactly. That is true. It does open up doors for more things, more important things per se, most definitely. But at the end of the day, we need to organize. Basically, like you said, when you said MLK, the Alphas, he got the Alphas and other fraternities and sororities. They organized and they put pressure on the government. Where are these sororities and these fraternities right now for the important issues that we need to pass through our government? Because we know most Black people are Democrats, so that's not a secret. Why are we not putting the pressure on this Democratic Party that have control of the House, the executive branch, and if I'm correct, the Senate too, right, Isaiah? They have control of the Senate. If not, they have damn near control of the Senate too. With Kamala being the vice president, she cast the final vote on anything. So they may have control of the Senate as well. Why are they not using this power to pass things that's tangible for us? We need all these sororities, fraternities to put pressure. Hey, they put these laws on the books for Black people. For Black people, not people of color. We ain't using that term people of color, They don't put people of color when they pass these Asian hate crime bills and stuff like that. So they need to put these laws on the books for Black people, or however you want to turn or call yourself. They need to put these laws on here for us. Where these fraternities and sororities will put pressure on here for reparations, that we all can agree that descendants of slaves need reparations. It's definitely something that needs to be repaired in this country, and we don't need that BS of talking about they'll give reparations out and that funny stuff. No, we need checks, installments. You can do it in 5-year installments, or however many installments you want to do. It don't have to be all one lump sum in 1 year. You can do 5, 10-year payments, 15-year payments, whatever it may be, But we need to figure out how to get these cash payments going. If they can send money out to shit, I forgot the country. What's the country in the war with Russia? Ukraine. Yes, I can't think. This has been a long day. They send money and give all millions and billions of dollars to people in Ukraine. Not only that, they sending folks to our country. So not even they getting the money, they getting the benefits to come with it. So
Mhm.
that's crazy. So we need all these black bourgeoisie people and fraternities and sororities to organize on something more meaningful. Like they, as you say, they done for the MLK holiday in the past.
I'll touch on 3 points, and I'll kind of tie these together. First one being those, let's just call them organizations, associations, fraternities, etc. groups. Uh, Part of this role and this duty, you are correct, lies on them, because these are the institutions or organizations that are our black thought leaders, the people that we're supposed to aspire to, the people who are supposed to represent us. On that note, again, it goes back to me being, this is just where I'm at right now with it. The fact that those organizations, being how deeply rooted they are, aren't really going to change how they do the things that they do, how they operate. One is possibly because of money, where they operate off donations or off memberships, which is both some things that they do, like fraternity sororities that operate off of membership dues, right? And or donations. And so they're not going to just freeze those to get what needs to be done. So the solution, because we talk about the problem and the solution, that's the problem. That's one of the problems. Okay, we have these organizations. You can even say the Black Caucus that aren't doing what we quote unquote want to do. The solution is, I say, to match names to faces, and if we are going to vote, don't vote for them if they are in a votable position. And the second one is to, like you said, go back to organizing. That's why I say we can just focus on the little things that we can do at a local level. And then this may be a very not optimistic statement, but I just have pity on some other people, and it is what it is. You can't quote unquote save everybody. A lot of people are going to perish. This has always happened throughout history. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but it is what it is. Those organizations and the roots, they will continue to do the things that they do. Second thing, and I want to just kind of correct the record a little bit. Um, it was called the COVID-19 hate, bill, not the Asian hate crime bill. I just say that when people say that, but I understand where you're coming from because of all the rise of the attacks that were happening. The media was portraying it as Asians that were being attacked and they were having hate crimes, which that's up for debate. I'm not going to say that's here nor there, but to your point, there is a talking point, and this is one reason why I've kind of, I'm not going to say left politics. I wasn't really into it, but a little bit of my history and working with some of these organizations. The
Mm-hmm.
talking point that people are using on both sides of the aisle is that when you legislate, you don't make legislation for just a group of people. As one black person said, I'm not going to say his name, you can't just legislate something for just black people. You have to legislate for all of America. That right there tells me where people stand when you make that statement. And these are people on both sides of the aisle that stand behind that statement. However, I would counter that by saying, would it not make sense to legislate, not specifically for Black people, but to ensure that people, descendants of African captives, have what they need to do to be productive members of society, to make all of America greater, to make all of America better? That would make sense. Furthermore, in my experience in real life, in person, and going to meetings and seeing people speak from the Black Chamber of Commerce, for example, versus the Latino Chamber of Commerce, and then even the organization of the NAACP, not once, and this is not a shot at any of our brown brothers and sisters, have I gone and heard somebody from a Latino organization like the Latino Chamber of Commerce say, hey, these are all the things that we're doing and Black people, right? Now, I'm not terribly mad at that because that goes back to that argument of what are organizations doing? What are they representing, right? I've never heard that from any other organization include Black people. Now, when it comes to NACP, for example, and Black Chamber of Commerce, and even the Black Caucus, I have heard right in front of my face say we need to do these things for Black and Brown people. Now, that's not a false statement in and of itself. I'm behind that. That's true. But then again, it's like you have a group of people who are urging you to do something. And when you bring up other people to say, to spite what people like you and me are concerned, who might be considered grassroots, you see it, I consider it kind of disrespectful. So those are just things that I've literally taken at face value. And those are things that people are saying. At least you know where they're at. So if they're going to make a statement like that, if everybody in the Congressional Black Caucus is going to make a statement like that and stand behind it, that lets you know where they're at. Okay, y'all can continue to do that. We're gonna go over here. We're gonna organize, and then the other part that people may not want to fully get behind is just don't cast your vote at all, right? But that's a much larger topic that it takes a lot of people to rally behind. So, but I mean, again, it's like you said, it goes back to organizing, point blank, period. And I think if more people can use this holiday, for example, to be educated on what is going on, get engaged, and then focus on what you can do at a local level, then you can start to see the change. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, that's true. And we shouldn't expect any other groups to champion things for nothing within their own group. And in my opinion, black people are the only ones that think like that, think that we care so much about other groups of people that we always talk about, hey, we gotta take care of everybody. No, fuck that. Like we already got some fucked up shit going on. So we need to worry about ourselves first before we can worry about anybody else, at the end of the day. Not to say we don't care about the a brown coalition or any other groups, but we got
Because
our
I'm
own
for
shit
it. I
we gotta
support it.
fix. Yeah, we got our own
Yeah.
shit we need to fix. And I'm me personally, I do see a lot. I do see some Latinx or Mexican descendants or different groups. I see some of them. They try to work with the black people on
For
different
sure.
things and different
United
coalitions.
Fort Worth, example.
United Fort Worth is a perfect example. To me, they the only example. If we want to be
Hey, hey,
real about it,
that's
if we
right.
want to be real about it, United Fort Worth is the only example I have seen in my life in this country that shows some type of resemblance of a black and brown coalition at the end of the day. So
And
that's my only example. To me, that's my I have seen. I'm not saying it's not other groups,
yeah,
but I have seen that's really doing a true black and brown coalition is United Fort Worth. But usually that do not take place. You
mhm,
don't usually see what we call per se brown people working with the black community on
yeah,
agenda together. That do not fucking happen at all. Like when you see big Hispanic, Latinx populations, they do not fuck with black folks usually in those populations. Where you go to San Antonio, you go to
yeah.
other city that have a majority of Hispanic and Latinx population, they do not work together with no minority groups like black. In those cities like San Antonio, black people is the minority compared to Latinx is the majority, and they do not fuck with brown people in those cities. They don't fuck with brown people in LA. They uh they it ain't no coalitions in those cities. So
Mhm.
we like to talk about this fairy tale of black and brown, but the shit don't usually work like that, at the end of the day.
And on that note, another answer to that is, uh, and this is just a thought. Like I heard the brother say it, Phil from African Diaspora News Channel. It made me think. Is whenever we go to these spaces, because again, I'm for the unity. I'm really much more optimistic than my former self. So if we do go to these spaces, if black people go to these spaces, or if we go to a quote unquote meeting with somebody from another community member, and they start speaking about what they want, we just say that, hey, you need to include black people in that. Whether it's an Asian American, whether it's Hispanic American, any and every all even social groups, just say, okay, you need to include brown and black. Like that would be a counter to that. Now I'm not saying that's the answer. That was just interesting. That made me think about it when he said that. Another reason some people may not support the idea of let's say how we're talking about right now, how black people need things specifically, or we need to have a kind of focus on our own, is because some people again don't understand history and they aren't educated on what segregation is. I'm saying this because this is a word that is used in the vernacular. Is we have all these different groups, and I'm going to post this in my story. I made a bunch of videos. I'm going to post one a day. Um, and what some people will call this is segregation. They will say that, oh, the Black caucus, that's segregation. The Hispanic caucus is segregation. This group is segregation. That group is segregation. When in reality, okay, no, these are all different groups that have different stories, different plights here in America. And everybody wants to magically get to this point. Maybe you agree with this. I don't know. You can disagree. You let me know. Everybody wants to magically think that we are just all Americans. Like snap our fingers tomorrow, we're all Americans. Race doesn't exist. All these things don't exist, which they do. We know they exist, but we want to snap our fingers and say we're magically Americans so that we can disband all of these different quote unquote groups. The dangerous thing behind that is everybody has their story, right? And this is why I'm big on setting the record straight and having people be educated, because we know we can't convince or, tell somebody a message if they're not receptive. But one thing I try not to do is let people lie, right? Because if we don't tell our story, that means somebody else is going to be telling our story. Now, is that other person educated on our story? I'll give you a perfect example. Today, you may have saw it. I went to the Tarrant County Black Historical Genealogical Society. The president, the operator of that building is a Black woman, right? Black woman on the board. The workers they have in there are Latinos. Well, there's one Latino woman, and when I saw on the website, there's another Latino man. There's nothing wrong with that, right? They're teaching history. They probably applied for that position, or they were the people who were there, right?
Mm-hmm.
People don't understand what segregation was, and it's dangerous to say that all these different groups and what they're doing is segregation, because segregation was, people say again, Juneteenth celebrates freedom. Segregation was the legal separation and the cutoff of funds, resources, funding, voting, all of that. Not just for Black people, but we're talking about Black people, but brown people, Asian people, all these other different people in that time period. That's what segregation was. It wasn't just Black people living over here and white people living over there. A lot of Black people were also cut off from funds and resources. That's what some of our schools were suffering. Also, when people talk about this is a separate, we can get into this some other time. We talk about segregation and integration in the 1964 Civil Rights Act. You had Black businesses, Black towns, Black communities, just like busing, that took time to gel out because they were desegregated. And with desegregation, people lost their uniformity in their communities. You lost Black businesses. You lost all these different things. So that's another thing people don't understand. I went on a tangent. I'm sorry I say that because it bothers me when people will say this association should be disbanded because this is segregation, right? Blacks don't need that. Let's just all be Americans. No, we have a specific story. And again, to your point, I haven't heard anybody else go to another group and tell them that to their face, that you don't need this, or that you don't need a rib, you don't need this because you have what you need, or we're all Americans. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I've never witnessed somebody else tell that to another group of people. And if we don't tell our story and if we don't know our history, then we'll have somebody else telling it to us. And
it's gonna be important for the youth like you, Isaiah. It's gonna be important for the youth like you because even for my generation too, for my age group as well, because the reason why we still having a lot of these bullshit ass issues going on and problems is because we got these old timers that's not only the old timers that's in these political office, we still have the old timing as voters. The people that putting these people in office are the people that's voting are these old fuckers, man. Like the old fuckers that's around 50 and up. They the one
that's kind of young, but yeah.
Yeah, the 50 and up crowd, those are the people that keep putting these people that not doing shit for the Black people in office. These old fuckers that got old, they just trying to.
Why is that? Why do you think that is?
They just trying to. The reason is that they trying to die a peaceful death. You know, the older you get, you don't have that dog fighting you anymore. You just wanna be on the beach somewhere. You wanna be your house probably paid off. You just want peace when you old. And these old fuckers are voting for peace. They don't want no row, no rowdiness going on. That's gonna fuck up their social security and their benefits, whatever perceived notions they may have in their old heads. They want peace and quiet. They don't want the boat to rock. Even if they probably rock the boat in their past, now that they're older, they don't want that boat rock. They just want to get to the finish line peacefully. So,
and in their defense, they probably, just real quick, I'm with you. I mean, they are scared.
It's a defense you can kill for that shit, but I'm just telling you the reason.
I'm saying there's probably a sense of. Can you hear me? Hold up. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you now. Yeah, I hear
Can you
you.
hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Is it echoing?
No, you good.
Okay. Excuse me. I was just gonna say, if there was any defense for that, it's because of what you said. They don't want to rock the boat anymore. Maybe some of them are fearful, namely some of the women. Maybe they have seen that, and I know you're going to read that comment in a second. They have seen that before, and they've seen perhaps violence committed upon them or their family members. So, in a sense, you're right. It's up to younger people like yourself, me, and others who, not to say we haven't seen that, but we are more unfearful in the sense because we see where things are at now. And although they may have seen things in the past, they may not want to see things go back to that. We're less fearful in the sense because we haven't seen that and we know what we want to see. So that's why I don't give the old timers too much of a hard time, but I'm with you. But then again, it's like, hey, what can you say? Maybe they don't know any better. But then there are some that do. You know, you have the Claude Andersons of the world. You have people that speak truth to power well into their older years. Today, Ruby Carey, I was looking at some of his books. I didn't know he recently passed, like in the last 10 or so years. And I was like, man, this dude was really speaking truth to power. And he consistently updated and wrote his books. A lot of the books you can't find now. That's my next tour. That's my next quest. But I'm with you. And go ahead for what you were saying.
No, like I said, I was about to read Ann Kelly comment. She was saying before engagement with allies or even Latinx brown folks, Black people have to agree on a common ideology and plan to organize towards, which barely happens and why we tend to be stuck. Which is, yeah, she's right on that. We do need to come together. Of course, not all Black folks gonna have a common ideology, of course, but for the most part, we need to have a core ideology that we can organize and strategize around at the end of the day. And right now, I think reparations is that one thing we can't organize. I think regardless if you're a Black LBGTQ plus Z, whatever person, you can agree on reparations. A Black woman, a Black man,
Not
everybody.
Black conservatives.
Yeah, I think everybody can agree that we need reparations. So that may just be the common ground we all need to rally around right now.
Okay. And then the conversation then turns, this is for a separate time, is what does reparations looks like? For example, your earlier example of not everybody getting a check or what we actually need. I think personally the reparations could look differently. You know, I personally am more of a fan of, and you probably agree with this too, hey, we need land, point blank, period. I've been doing a lot of history.
You can buy land with your check. You can buy land with your check.
But I mean, you can buy land with your check, but they should give you the land.
Listen, if I owe you money, how you want me to pay you back? You want me to tell you, like, listen, man, I go buy you get you some food with the money I owe you or something. You may want to do something else with your money.
That's true. That's what I'm saying. It can look different ways. That's all I'm saying. Right? There's people who bought land for $600 way back then, and then now it's worth so much more. You know, that's what I'm saying.
They can give us a worthless piece of land. They can give us some land that's in the fucking the desert somewhere. There go your reparation, nigga. You got it.
They could.
Can't do nothing with it. Can't plant no crops or nothing with it. So it's all type of, you got at the end of the day, you got to be careful with that too, because it's all type of little trick bags they can do with that as well. The hardest trick bag is if you give somebody cash, and we got to look at it. I want all Black people to hear this that's watching right now. You're watching down the road. Reparations is old. So don't be pocket watching what other people do with their damn money.
Yeah.
If somebody owe you some money, it ain't none of their damn business how you spend it. That money is owed to us. So if Tom, Dick, and Harry want to go fucking spend their money on some bundles, on some J's, or fly to Dubai, some shit, whatever the fuck they want to do, is their fucking money. It's owed to them, and they can blow it how the fuck they want to blow it. End of the day, because the money is owed. Now, there's gonna be some people in that's gonna do some smart things. Gonna be some brothers and sisters come together, pool their resources together. Exactly. I hope, but it's gonna be some that doing that as well. But at the end of the day, we can't be pocket watching people also. So
I want to read this off before you.
Yeah.
I know you're probably about to go. I want to read this off on that piece right there because this is another. We could talk about so many different things, but there's a lot of different. Damn, is my screen go dark? Talking points that people like to use. So when it comes to reparations, right? And I mentioned land. This is coming from the National Juneteenth Observation Foundation. It's on Opal's website. Anybody can go through it. This is like 4 pages. June 14th, 1866 was the official end of slavery in the territory. We're talking about Galveston. Regarding the 4 major treaties that were negotiated and formally signed in 1866 with the Cherokee, Creek, Seminole, and a combined treaty with the Chickasaw and Choctaw, these treaties each contained 4 major provisions. To begin with, as punishment for aiding the Confederate rebellion, each tribe forfeited lands amounting to amount of half of their designated protected territory. Last sentence. The second provision of these treaties declared a general amnesty for all Americans. Okay, so on that note, because I know you have heard it as well, when people talk about reparations, literally had somebody tell me to my face the other day, what about Indians? Give the Indians reparations. Okay, tribes, we have to acknowledge and admit that the land that we sit on today, in part, did belong to previous tribes. I honor that and I respect that. They are still given money every year, right? This statement right here does not mean all tribes own slaves, but it does say that those tribes were punished who did aid the Confederacy, and they gave land back to some of the African Americans. This is literally coming again, National Juneteenth Observation Foundation.org. So hopefully that's a trustable source for most people. On that note, also, there's some into the 1920s, but the last war recorded, generally speaking, is 1890 when it comes to the Native American conflict. So I bring that up because we have to also understand when we talk about reparations, as you know, again, many other groups have received, this is for the viewers again, many other groups, in case people don't know, have received reparations, right? And it has been in either form of tangible cash or land. That's why I say land is a big one, right? To this day, the land that was given, or the money that was, the little bit of money that was given to some Africans after the Civil War ended and then went on to purchase land. Same thing here in Stop 6 and went on to purchase land. That land itself, the people who inhabited that land were ran off, as you know, by, I'll say it on the record, racist white supremacists, right? Ku Klux Klan among other groups. Carpetbaggers is a term that people use. There's a book for the people to look at. I still haven't started it, but it's called The Devil's Triangle. This talks about North Texas. You probably can't see that. The Devil's Triangle. Ben Bickerstaff, Northeast Texans, and the War of Reconstruction in Texas. Within 10 to 20 year period, less than 20 years Reconstruction lasted, you already had people on our tails running us off our land. And I have a personal family story of that, and we have records of it. But again, that's for another time. So I just want to say that for the viewers, because again, people will say, you need reparate. You already know all the things people say.
Yeah. And before we get out of here, I want to read this last comment from Pamela. She put in the comment section, universal basic income needs to happen as well. She was saying MLK preached about that as well, universal basic income. And Pam, you know what? That's parking lot that, as we say in the corporate world, that's parking lot that I may want to bring you on to talk about universal basic income.
Austin just started that. Austin just started a guaranteed income program.
You know what? You would be surprised. My socialist ass may be on the fence about this topic.
It just depends. I mean, that it goes back to reparations. We're doing that in California. Reparations could be something locally that's done. If you have the evidence and you have the backing and the plan, like all these organizations do with Juneteenth, you could present something to the city council like they do in California and say, hey, you know, these people are old land. Here are the records. Here's everything to do it. Make it happen on a local level if they're not going to do it on the national level. That's just an idea.
Now I may be on the fence about the income part, but I definitely believe that we need housing solution. Not like, I ain't talking about HUD housing and all that. I'm talking about like capping like how high these rent can go up to. Like this is crazy. We need to fix rent. We need some type of rent control or work up some ideas how to control the rent, because this can't keep going on. Like this is really pushing certain people into a whole nother class. Like if we keep going to this rate, it's going to only be two class, which I think we really have a two class right now in this country. Either you have it or you don't have it right now. It's
Yeah.
like it's really no middle class anymore. The only way you can be middle class in this country if you are a married couple now. If you're not married, you poor. You
So
poor.
50-50. Men
Yeah.
and women 50-50.
Yeah. And the way women think, they already be poor before they do anything with a man doing 50-50 or 60-40 or anything. They already be destitute, broke, starving. That's a whole other topic though. We gonna keep it friendly. All right. But other than that, Isaiah, anything you want to say before I let you go, man? Good discussion, man.
Lastly, again, as you know, Ken, too, we talk about problems, and part of the solution is brothers like yourself are doing it along with organizations like United Fort Worth. Is you have to organize, understand that many of the problems and the things you want to see change, whether people want to believe it or not, are all within the system. So the only way to change that system or to have the change you want to see is to go out and organize with those, I would say, like-minded people. I don't know if you want to read hers. Your organization, Black Empowerment Movement, is an example. There are many other organizations that are doing this work. When people want to know what the answers are, I literally refer people to say, hey, go check out United Fort Worth. Go check out Black Empowerment Movement. Go check out. I was in Dallas this past week, and I was like, hey, look at what this organization is doing. See how and not just meet people where they're at, and you go out and organize. Voting is part of it, right? There's multifaceted issues, but if you want to make the change, you have to do boots on the ground, and part of that is organizing. And I've told myself that my goal is just to get troops in the fight. I see a lot of different organizations doing what they're doing. I say, hey, I don't need to have another organization. Let's just go join the fight, see what they're doing, and if we need something else, we add it on later. That's all I have to say.
Man, good input. Before we go, I hate to go without reading comments, man. Mm-hmm. And she was saying, to your point, reparations has been awarded to victims of the Rosewood massacre in Florida, and also she said it was only 2.1 million, but cities across America like Tulsa was pushed on local and state level. But she commented that about building a federal case for reparation on a federal level. Man, look, I'm gonna say this. I swear I'm gonna leave. Okay, Ann Kelly. If folks don't know Ann Kelly, yes, she was part of BEM. Isaiah part of BEM. He left us. He abandoned us. But I'm just bullshit. But yes, but to Ann, I'm gonna say this, man. It's been passed. Ain't no time for case building, no time for research. The research has been done, and we don't need no federal case. We just need Joe Biden to make an executive order to cut the damn check. Or these politicians need to stop pussyfooting around and vote this in or whatever. Like, we don't need all that case and going through loopholes and man, that day been done and passed. It's been passed through. These folks just need to go and cut the motherfucking check and stop playing around with our fucking money. At the end of the day, or we ain't voting their ass in, or we gonna do some other shit. But at the end of the day, cut the damn check. But that's all I am. I know we got off a whole nother topic, but this was about Juneteenth. Hopefully y'all had the day off. My black ass did. But other than that, I want to remind y'all to please, if you're watching live, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If y'all like great discussions like this, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Black Empowerment Movement YouTube channel. If you like the video, you like the discussions, share the video, like it. Even if you disagree with everything we're talking about, put it in the comment section. I reply to every comment. I go through, I reply, respond back. So, yeah, leave a comment. Even if you disagree, I'm going to get in there and go back and forth with you on there. So, but at the end of the day, we about to be out of here. And as always, all power to the people. Y'all have a good one. Take care.
Peace.